120 years ago, 1893, Leo XIII, Pope since 1878, declared this feast, the Feast of the Holy Family. There were a variety of reasons surrounding this, but the Industrial Revolution and other things at that time were putting a lot of stress on family, so it was part of the reason he declared this feast. And in 1969, when they rearranged the liturgical calendar, they decided to put this feast on the Sunday in between Christmas and Easter. So this is the Holy Family. And I think it is ironic, and perhaps we can take relief from the fact that the text that is chosen for the gospel on this Sunday is one about conflict and great anxiety. It should take the pressure off of us. Not unusual that families go through this. The text itself is very rich. It's the very end. I don't know if any of you picked up Pope Benedict's latest book, and that is the one on the infancy narratives. That's in Luke and in Matthew. This is Luke, chapter 2. It's the very end of chapter 2. So it is, in fact, this story, it's the only place you'll find this in the four Gospels. This story is a kind of bridge between the birth of Jesus and his public ministry. His public ministry begins right after this. So let's go through the Gospel, refer to the first reading, and then draw some conclusions, 3 of them. First of all, in the Gospel it says, each year Jesus' parents went up to Jerusalem. So it was customary for them. It was one of 3 seasons or 3 celebrations that involved pilgrimages. This is an art that is mostly lost in the United States. Too many highways, and so on. We don't do pilgrimages. They do more of them in Europe. And in the Jewish tradition, they had 3 of them. One of the major ones was, of course, in the spring of the year, the Feast of the Passover. And it says they went to Jerusalem. Let's not overlook the fact that that's about a 70-mile walk. 70 miles. So even at a good speed, you're talking of 4 days, 5 days, all right? So they go to Jerusalem, and this was at a time when Jesus was 12. Now, he's no longer a child, and he's not quite yet an adult, all right? I think this is significant for a couple of reasons. It says, after they have completed its days there, it's usually about a 5-6 day festival, so it's quite a gathering, and they were returning, the boy remained behind in Jerusalem. It wasn't parental neglect. He made a decision. Young people tend to do this, I have found. His parents did not know it, and we'll find out they didn't understand it. Is this beginning to ring true? I learned all I've learned from my sisters and brother who've all had children. I have children too, but you know what I mean. Thinking that he was in the caravan. Typically, and it says here, acquaintances and family, extended family, it's a whole group for a couple of reasons. It's rather dangerous to make these trips. There were robbers, there were wild beasts, and so on. So they went in a group, and that group could have been 50, 60, 70 people from the area of Nazareth. Thinking that he was in the caravan. Oh, another point. In Orthodox synagogues today, the men and the women are separated, all right? They come to pray, but they're separated. It was not unusual, historians tell us, that in these caravans, the men and the women would be separated, but in a way to protect the whole group. And then at the evening, the men and the women, the husbands and wives, would be together for rest. So I imagine to myself, I have no reason not to think this, but maybe Mary thought to herself, look, Jesus is 12, he's trying to act like a man, he wants to be a man, so he's with his father. Joseph says, well, he's still a kid. He's about 12, he's probably with his mother. Otherwise it looks like parental neglect of the first order, doesn't it? You've gone a whole day, and only then, where is my son? We're not talking about people in a SUV together, So here it is. It says, they looked for him among their relatives, and not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem. the two of them. Without the caravan, the safety of the caravan, their kid is more important. I don't like to refer to the Son of God as the kid, but this is family time here. After 3 days, they found him in the temple. The last place to look for a 12-year-old is in church. So they find him in the temple, and he's sitting in the midst of teachers. Now, this is significant in the Gospel of Luke because at the end of his public ministry, Jesus is in the temple again, and he's teaching. So it all links together in this gospel. He's asking them questions and so on. And of course, the parents are astonished. Perhaps a better translation of the Greek would be they were overwhelmed. Overwhelmed with what? With anxiety. They were, in fact, it says his mother said to him, not the father. The mother says to him, "Why have you done this to us?" Now, I think there's a tendency on the part of most of the gospel writers, I could be wrong on this, I could be struck, they airbrush too much. This is really a conflict. I could picture her using expletives. What the, you know, and he said, she says, "Your father and I have been looking for you. We both have been looking for you." "Did you not know," says Jesus, "did you not know that I must be about my father's," now this translation is father's house. The Greek is different, about my father's things. It isn't just to be in a dwelling, it's to be on a mission. "Do you not know that I must be about my," now what do you think Joseph thought when he hears his kids say, "I have to be about my father's"? I'm your father, and let me tell you what your business is. No, it says here, "I must be about my father's business." And of course, they did not understand what he said to them. "And he went down with them, and he came to Nazareth and was obedient to them." Jesus came to do the will of the Father. If you look at the 10 Commandments as the gift of the Father, the 4th commandment is obey your father and your mother. So there's not a conflict here. I always say to Protestants who have a big problem with Mary, I said, look, do you want to be like Jesus? He loved his mother. 4th commandment, get with it. So here it says, he was obedient to them. The mother kept all these things in her heart. She didn't understand fully. You know, you think that Mary, being full of grace, being sinless, she would no, she didn't understand everything. We've got sin and selfishness. Is it any wonder that we have trouble understanding a lot of stuff? I do. The more I study, the less I know. My students tell me that. And then there's this extraordinary statement at the end, and Jesus advanced. Now keep in mind, he's the Son of God. Can the Son of God grow in knowledge, wisdom, age? Does God learn? It's just thrown in there. But he grew, all right? Keep in mind, too, I mean, when you look at this idyllic, I was looking at this coming in especially up here, it's just like a lovely little place. There's no anxiety there. Airbrushed. Until the age of 13, sons and daughters were educated by their mothers. Jesus' religious sensibility was shaped by his mother. At the age of 13, as it were, the child, especially the son, was handed off to the father to learn a profession. He was rushing it here, a little bit early. But that basically would be the thing. So the gospel is rich. Let me refer more briefly to the first reading. This is the story of Hannah, who was aged, was not able to conceive. She prayed for a son. She was blessed with a son. Her father's going to go off, Elkanah, to do some, and says, I don't want to go. Once the child is weaned, this is a biblical warrant for breastfeeding, I will take him and appear at the Lord and remain there forever. I will offer him as a perpetual Nazarite, a particular kind of devoted person. And they go to the temple, and his mother says this to Eli as the priest. It's not the temple, it's really a sanctuary. Listen to this prayer she gives. As you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood near you here. I came here, I prayed for a child. Would you bless me with a child? I prayed for this child, and the Lord granted my request. Now, in turn, I give him to the Lord. I give my child back to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be dedicated to the Lord. And then it adds, Hannah left Samuel there. If you get any ideas about leaving your kids here at the church, I'm not sure they're ready for that. But the idea, the simple thing is, she dedicated her child. We do the same thing at baptism. We dedicate our child to God. Okay, what are some conclusions we can draw? First one is, if you read the New Testament, all 4 Gospels and the epistles, you know what? You're going to find very little about family. What you find is a call to conversion and a call to community. And there's even the call to celibacy. This is not prominent in Judaism. It's certainly not prominent in Islam. To have celibacy is important. Celibacy suggests, if it's freely chosen, that's why it's a good argument whether priests should be required. If it's freely chosen as a gift, it points to something. It points that, in the last analysis, physical reproduction is not the most important thing. It's not even the most important thing in marriage, right? There are people who can have children and they're dreadful parents. So it takes a lot more than that. So here you have a situation where the notion of family is redefined by the New Testament, that says it is primarily a community of love and sacrifice and encouragement. Second, there's also in these readings, embedded in these readings, a notion of priority. What is the priority that we should have? If the first is a new family, new type of family, what is the priority? The priority, should be clear, is God first. I remember a very bright young man and his wife. I witnessed their wedding, and he went off, did his PhD in economics, had a postdoc, and they were just about to go off to take a position at a university where he eventually got tenure. But he was a little filled with anxiety and so on, and they said, "Do you have any advice for us?" You know, that's all they got to say to me. And I said, yeah, I have advice for both of you. God first, your marriage second, and tenure third. If God is first, your marriage will be sound. And tenure, well, we'll see what happens. He got tenure. The Sunday before this, I was at a parish in Sedona, Arizona, where my youngest sister and her husband live. And the priest gave it was a children's kind of mass. And he gave a very good homily. What he did was, called all the children up. But he had a huge box like this, wrapped in nice paper, sat in front of the altar, and had the kids up, and he started to talk to them and so on. And he says, "I have a gift for you." And he reaches in the box, and he pulls out a big J and asks one of the kids to hold it. "And what is this?" And they all said, "J." "That's good." And then he pulled out, and there was a big O. It wasn't Oscar, wasn't Ohio State, it was just O. And then he pulled out the last one, and it was a Y. He says, "What does this spell?" Some of the kids were old enough. "Joy." He says, "What does it mean?" And he said, "It means Jesus first, others second, and you third." Jesus first, others second, and you third. Or as Rick Warren put it in his book, it's not all about you. Now, psychologically, it doesn't work that way. Psychologically, you learn to love because other people have loved you. We love with the love with which we have been loved. And kids that have parents and significant adults that love help them to get to a point where they can consider others. Otherwise, they remain narcissistic, caught in themselves. So here you have this beautiful priority set out there. Third point, besides redefining family and setting priority, what difference does it make? What ought we to do? And I'd like to refer, by way of conclusion, to the second reading, which I find especially rich. And in fact, I had never really thought of this till last night. I was reading and praying about this and so on, and I said, this makes sense. Maybe it'll make sense to you. Maybe you'll think otherwise. I don't know. But it says we're all called to be children of God. What exactly we shall be has not yet been revealed. We do know that when it is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. That's a very interesting point. We shall be like him, and we shall see him as it is. You know how we use the phrase, takes one to know one? We usually use that phrase, don't we, to put somebody down, somebody that's made a criticism, but there's a profound truth in that. Here's another way to say it. If you've never fallen in love, I mean real love, if you've never fallen in love, how are you going to understand the Eucharist? The Eucharist is the body and blood, the sacrifice, the laying down of his life for us that we may have life. So it suggests that there's a profound transformation that has to take place in us over time through great anxiety and suffering and other things. It's the process of growing in holiness. And that's a great gift to know that we grow in holiness. Luther had a problem with this. He once described the process of justification, of being saved, is like a coating of snow over a dung heap. Well, that's not very encouraging, is it? Underneath, we remain a pile of crap. Now what he was trying to deal with was simul justus et peccator, that at the same time we're both sinners, he was trying to say it that way. But Catholicism says we can be transformed. Just as the body, the bread and the wine is transformed into the body and blood, we can be transformed. That's what the family is about. It's a family of faith. It places God first. So if there's anything we need to do, we need to be transformed in the love of Jesus Christ so that we can begin to see him now in one another, in our children, in our grandchildren. I think that's a wonderful message. Let's give thanks to God for it.